So I've had this Alocasia black velvet for ages, and for that entire time it's been stuck on 3 leaves or less like now. And as soon as it starts putting out a new leaf, one of the old ones seems to always go yellow and just drops off again, almost like clockwork. But here's the thing about these Alocasias. Alocasias don't drop leaves because they're dying. They're actually making a very smart and very calculated decision about what they can afford to keep alive and stable. And once you understand the system behind all of their decisions, you can actually stop panicking about your poor little Alocasia and you can start solving, like a plant detective. So the first place is the most obvious, but I want to talk about it a little bit differently than you've probably heard before. Everyone says bright indirect light. I say that myself, but that phrase almost means nothing to a plant, right? What actually matters is how much energy is coming in from that space. And light and temperature together determine how fast your plant can do its thing, can photosynthesize. And the photosynthesis, that process is what does everything for your plant. It gives you new growth, it gives you root health, and it helps it hold on to its existing leaves. Light is the food and the energy source for your plants. It's not the fertilizer, it's the sun and the light. But Alocasias are special, as we know, because Alocasias are built to go dormant in winter. So in nature, they're not running this 12-month operation. When it gets cold, they shut down and wait for warmer conditions. So I always used to focus on just light for my Alocasias, but it's actually the combination that was the issue for me a long time ago. My light was fine, like in this spot here, but the temperature was dragging everything down. So think of it this way. You could be sitting in the brightest room in your house, but if it's freezing cold in there, you are not comfortable. And it's the same for your beautiful Alocasias. We get obsessed with bright indirect light and the right lighting. And yes, that absolutely matters. But in Alocasias, light and temperature are not separate things. So they're a partnership. You can't have one without the other and expect your Alocasia to perform beautifully. Now, don't get me wrong, you absolutely can let them go dormant. A dormant Alocasia is not a failing Alocasia, but if you do want 4, 5, 6 leaves, and if you want it almost year round, then you have to try and keep the conditions warm enough and bright enough that she thinks it's still growing season. So for an Alocasia, that means bright light, warm air, and warm soil, which I will touch on just a little bit later. So the question here is simple. Is your plant in growth mode, or have you accidentally told it to take the winter off? Because if the temperature is sitting too low, she's not going anywhere, she's not going to do anything. And once that shuts down, everything else with this plant shuts down with it. So you've got your light and warmth all sorted, but she's still not pushing out a new leaf. So what's the next thing? Well, this next one is a little bit sneaky because your plant can have all the energy in the world, but if the ability to get that energy around the plant is blocked or broken, it's not going to matter. So I want you to grab your Alocasia and have a really good look at the petioles, almost the stem really. So the stem is this part here that's got a whole lot of like bark on it, but the petiole that takes it from the stem to the leaf is this part here. And that petiole in the Alocasia is doing a huge job here because of the structure of your Alocasia. It's held up by a lot of water. And you can kind of see in the stem, like if you dig your nail into it, it's a lot easier to get through the outside of that petiole than it is compared to something like a monstera or a, I don't know, philodendron. They have stems that have a lot more of a thicker coating, whereas these are a lot of water. Every time I see a petiole on an Alocasia or even a 𝗘𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗡𝗧, I think of celery. And celery is 95% water, but it also has a very rigid structure. And part of a celery is also that U shape, which is also the same as the base of these plants, of these leaves here with these petioles when they come out and they grow out into a new leaf. And this growing structure has to help it stand upright like this one, as much as it does to help take all the nutrients and the water around the plant. So it has structure and it has tension. And so this needs to be physically firm to do its job and hold the plant up properly. And so when that plant breaks down, when your Alocasia isn't getting enough water to all of its petioles and leaves and things, the plant cuts supply to that old leaf. It won't grow again. So again, just like celery, you know when you've had it in the fridge for a few days, it goes a little bit bendy and icky and you don't want to eat it? Well, that's the same kind of thing happening to your Alocasia. If you're not giving it enough water to maintain itself, it will go bendy, it will go a little bit limp, and your alocasia will again decide, you know what, I'm not in the best situation right now. I'm not going to grow more leaves. I'm just going to get rid of the ones that aren't working. So again, it's going to make this calculated decision not to grow more leaves, and you continue to get a 1, 2, or 3 leaf cycle maximum. So when it comes to watering these plants, these beautiful alocasias, I'm so in love with them. You need to find the Goldilocks zone, that happy medium. So not too little water that the plant loses its strength. You still want it to hold up all of its leaves, but you also don't want to give it too much water to get root rot. So not only is your watering amount important, the mix your alocasia is sitting in matters just as much. And that's the combination that works with these guys really well. So if you're not sure what to look for from a watering perspective with alocasias, well, if your stem is bending, quite significantly, or if it's kind of bent in the middle, which is the weakest point between the weight and the structure of the leaf and the main stem, then that's probably the structure failing, which means it doesn't have enough water circulating through the plant. If your plant is firm, but it's just really, really slow growth, then maybe the pathway for that water is working, but something else is limiting it, like the light or the temperature. And also just make sure you are checking the roots. They need to be actively white and thick and growing and just looking healthy and smelling fresh. If they're brown and static, then again, your plant has a few problems and it's not going to give you more leaves. So you've got light and warmth, check, and you've got watering done, check, but your aloe is still stuck. Well, it took me the longest time to figure this last one out because it's pretty much invisible. So for the longest time, I was focused so much on everything above the soil, the leaves, the stems, the light setup, but I completely ignored what was happening below it because I just assumed that the potting mix or the mixes that it's in was good enough because it worked for a lot of my other plants. So I was fertilizing, I was watering, and I genuinely thought my alocasias had everything they pretty much needed. But it was actually 2 quite invisible things that unlocked serious growth for me with my alocasias, and I mean serious. And I bet you haven't even thought about either of these things. So the first one is actually the soil temperature, which actually ties straight back to point number 1 because it's all connected, obviously, light and temperature and zones and humidities and all of that. So for an alocasia, cold roots gives it dormancy vibes, and then it can lock in the nutrients. And even if the air temperature feels nice for us, for me, when I put my alocasias like this on a heat mat, I had an alocasia gold mine, like literally poof, there were so many more leaves. And I saw the difference straight away when I had a heat mat under a lot of my alocasias. This is several years ago when I figured this out. And then the second big thing that ended up getting me 4, 5, 6 leaves on each plant is something, again, I almost guarantee you've overlooked, and that is the pH of your soil mix, or the pH of what your plant is sitting in. Because most plants around the world actually like their soil to be ever so slightly in an acidic soil or environment. But for alocasias, it's a big thing. It seems to be a bigger thing than I ever thought it would be. Because if your pH is neutral or too high or too low actually, your plants literally cannot absorb enough of what you're giving it. So the nutrients are right there, but your plant can't absorb them. So it's almost like it's locking itself out. I mean, honestly, how cool is that? Weird, wonderful, beautiful alocasias. They're very fussy, but wow, it's amazing. So now that you know the 3 big things, here's the part that I really want you to pay attention to in this video, because this is why a lot of people go through all of 3 of these fixes and still get stuck, because it's almost never just one of these things. When an alocasia is stuck on 3 leaves, it's usually a combination. So maybe your light is slightly under and the pH isn't quite right and the temperature is a little bit too cold. Each one on its own might not be enough to cause such a dramatic drop, but if you've got 2 or 3 of those things acting together, the plant hits its limits, it decides it's not in the right environment, and it drops its leaves, and it might even go to that dormancy stage. So let me put this down. So don't test one thing with these guys, change it, and then give up after 2 weeks. Work through all 3 of the different areas that I've spoken about and give it some time, and then watch what changes subtly over those different weeks. So for me, specifically with this black velvet, I can tell you now, it's a lot to do with the water and the soil issues. And also the fact that I'm not really enjoying looking after leca, so this poor thing is suffering a little bit more than it should. Because this guy has been sitting right next to my Alocasia Maharani, same spot, same light, same temperature, and they're 2 very different plants right now. So which one do you think is the issue for your plant? Drop it in the comments below. Let me know if any of these hit home for you. And if you want my full working alocasia DIY potting mix to get my alocasias big and beautiful and lush, I've actually shared that in my Leafy Legend Circle, my membership. It's only $4.99 a month. It's less than the price of a coffee. I'll leave the link down below for you. So, final thing for me to do now is to repot and reset this alocasia along with some of the other alocasias that you've seen throughout this video, because I want to help them as well. And now comes the most exciting thing, the best part about owning alocasias, and it's the corm hunting. C-O-R-M, corm hunting. It's so exciting, oh my God. It's like finding little baby plants like a treasure hunt. So make sure you stick around for the next video because you're going to come corm hunting with me and I'm going to explain everything as I go. Honestly, so exciting. Anyway, for this video though, that's the end of this one. So have a week full of leaves, love and laughter as always. Thank you for watching and I will see you in this next video when we go treasure hunting. See you later.